Something slipped, and now it's bigger than anybody expected. Late last night, alleged leaked audio tied to Lil Durk, started spreading across private chats and underground pages. And the part that's shaking people isn't just what's being said, it's who might have been listening. Because according to sources, this wasn't some random leak. This may have come from someone inside his own circle. Now everything is under pressure. There's talk about an Apple Watch, rumors about destroyed evidence, and claims that private conversations could now be in the hands of the feds. And if even part of that audio is real, then somebody close didn't just make a mistake, they exposed him. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high as people started asking the same question. Was this loyalty breaking down, or was this a setup from the beginning? But just when that situation couldn't get any darker, Chicago gets hit with something that left people genuinely disturbed. A teenage boy is kidnapped, killed, and then, according to reports, the killers allegedly call his own mother and calmly tell her where to find his body. No fear, no hesitation, just instructions. And that moment, it changed everything, because now this isn't just about rap, it's about how dangerous things are really getting. So stay locked in, because this story goes deeper than what you've heard so far. The moment that audio started circulating, something changed, and not just online, but inside the circles closest to Lil Durk, because at first, people thought it was just another rumor. Another clip taken out of context, but the longer it stayed up, the more people started recognizing details that didn't feel random. The tone, the pacing, the way certain things were being said like they weren't meant for the public to ever hear. And that's when the real question hit: who recorded it? Because leaks like this don't just appear out of nowhere, they come from somewhere. And when sources started hinting that this could come from inside Durk's own circle, the entire situation shifted from speculation to something way more serious. Now it's not just about what's in the audio, it's about betrayal. There's already tension building around the Apple Watch situation. Claims from federal reports saying one thing, while Durk's side has been saying another. Allegations about a destroyed device, possible data, conversations that were never supposed to be recovered. And now, with this leaked audio floating around, people are starting to connect those dots, whether they're accurate or not. That's the dangerous part. Because perception starts moving faster than facts. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high across social media as people began dissecting every second of the clip, some saying it's real, others calling it AI. But even the doubt isn't slowing anything down, it's making it worse. Because now, instead of one narrative, there are multiple versions spreading at the same time. And every version adds pressure. Meanwhile, people connected to Durk aren't moving like everything is normal. There's less talking, less posting, more silence. And in situations like this, silence doesn't calm anything, it raises more suspicion. Because when something this sensitive surfaces, people expect immediate denial, clarification, something. But when that doesn't happen, it leaves space for assumptions. And assumptions don't stay small, they grow. One insider reportedly said, "It's not even about the audio anymore, it's about who let it happen." That line alone tells you where the focus is shifting. Because if this really came from inside, then trust is already broken somewhere. And once that happens, everything changes. At the same time, another layer of concern is building quietly. If federal attention is already involved, and now there's alleged audio adding to the situation, then anything said in private suddenly becomes a risk. Every conversation, every device, every person in the room. That's pressure most people don't understand, because it's not just external anymore, it's internal. And while all of this is unfolding, the public is watching it happen in real time, debating, analyzing, choosing sides without knowing the full picture. But that doesn't stop the narrative from forming, it accelerates it. Because in moments like this, people don't wait for confirmation, they react to what feels real. And right now, this feels real enough to cause damage, whether it's proven or not. But just as that tension is building around Durk, something else hits the timeline that shifts the entire energy in a completely different direction. Not music, not industry drama, real life. A case coming out of Chicago that people can't even process properly at first, because the details don't sound like something that should happen. But they did. And the more those details come out, the more it reminds people that what's happening in the streets right now goes way beyond rap conversations. Because while one situation is raising questions about loyalty and exposure, the other is showing just how cold things have actually become. The shift happens fast, and this time, it's not about rumors, it's about something real that already happened. Chicago wakes up to a case that doesn't just shock people, it unsettles them. Because this isn't a random headline, it's a sequence of events that feels calculated from start to finish. An 18-year-old gets taken, not in the middle of chaos, not during a public incident, but quietly, near a place that people pass every day without thinking twice. That's the first detail that stands out. No witnesses stepping forward immediately, no loud disturbance, just a disappearance that didn't look like one at first. Hours pass, then a call is made. Not to the police, to the mother. And that's where the entire situation takes a turn that people can't process easily. Because according to reports, the person on the other end doesn't panic, doesn't demand anything, doesn't even rush. They simply tell her where to find her son. Calm, direct. Like it's information being delivered, not a crime being confessed. That level of control, that's what's disturbing people the most. Police respond later that night to a location on the south side. Inside an apartment, not abandoned, not hidden in some remote area, but inside a space that looks normal from the outside. And when they enter, what they find confirms the worst. The victim is discovered in a position that shows this wasn't random violence. Hands restrained, multiple injuries, evidence at the scene that points to something planned, not spontaneous. And just like that, the case shifts from tragic to calculated. Now the city reacts. Not loudly at first, but deeply. Because this isn't just about one victim, it's about what this says. The fact that someone could carry something like this out and then make that call afterward, it sends a message that people don't feel safe ignoring. One local resident reportedly said, "It's not even the crime anymore, it's how comfortable they were after." That line spreads because it captures exactly what people are feeling. No rush to disappear, no fear in communication, just control. At the same time, investigators begin building a timeline. The abduction happens earlier in the day. Movement from one location to another. A gap where details aren't fully clear yet. And then the final location, the apartment, becomes the center of everything. But here's where another layer starts forming. There's no immediate explanation for why the victim was targeted. No clear public motive. And when that happens, people start filling in possibilities themselves. Was it personal? Was it mistaken identity? Was it connected to something bigger? Right now, nothing is confirmed publicly, but the lack of answers is what's driving the tension higher. Because uncertainty doesn't calm people, it unsettles them. Meanwhile, online reactions start building fast. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high as people begin comparing this situation to how things used to be. Older voices pointing out that violence has always existed, but the way it's happening now feels different. Emotional, more controlled, more intentional, and that word, intentional, keeps coming up. Because nothing about this feels random once you look at the details. From the location, to the restraint, to the call made afterward. Everything feels like it followed a sequence. And that's what makes it heavier than a typical case. Back in the city, families start having different conversations. Parents checking in more. People moving differently. Not because this is the first crime, but because of how this one happened. It changes perception, and perception affects behavior. At the same time, law enforcement continues processing evidence. Shell casings, positioning, timelines. All the technical details that will eventually lead somewhere. But right now, the public isn't focused on that. They're focused on the feeling. The idea that something like this can happen, and then be followed by a phone call that feels almost routine. That's what sticks. And when something like that sticks in a city, it doesn't fade quickly. It becomes part of the atmosphere. Now both situations, the pressure around Lil Durk and this case, are sitting in the same space. One raising questions about loyalty and exposure. The other showing what's happening outside of music entirely. And when those two energies exist at the same time, it creates a different kind of tension. Because now, people aren't just watching entertainment, they're watching reality unfold. And the line between the two, it's starting to feel thinner than ever. The pressure doesn't split between the two stories. It starts overlapping, and that's when everything feels heavier. Because while Chicago is still reacting to that case, attention quietly shifts back toward Lil Durk. Lil Durk, but this time, the conversation isn't just about the leak anymore. It's about what could happen next. And here's the twist that changes the tone completely. A second version of the alleged audio starts circulating. Not longer, not clearer, but slightly different. Different enough that people start questioning whether the first version was edited, or if multiple recordings exist. And that possibility, that's where things get serious. Because if there's more than one recording, then this wasn't accidental. That suggests repetition. That suggests access. That suggests somebody didn't just hear something once. They had the ability to capture it more than once. Now the focus shifts again. Not just who leaked it, but how long has this been happening? That question spreads fast. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high as people start revisiting older moments, interviews, statements, situations that didn't make sense at the time. Suddenly, everything starts getting reinterpreted through a new lens. And when that happens, narratives change quickly. At the same time, a quiet detail surfaces that adds even more tension. Someone close to Durk, no official name confirmed, allegedly deactivates their account within hours of the audio gaining traction. No explanation, no statement, just gone. Now that might mean nothing. Or it might mean everything, because timing like that doesn't go unnoticed. And once people connect those dots, speculation builds again. But this time it feels more focused. Less random guessing, more targeted suspicion. Meanwhile, legal conversations start picking up behind the scenes. Because if federal attention is already part of the situation, and now there's alleged audio being analyzed publicly, then anything in that clip becomes relevant. Tone, wording, references, all of it. And here's the part most people overlook. It's not just about what was said, it's about how it can be interpreted. One legal observer reportedly explained it like this. In cases like this, context gets built after the fact. That means something that sounded casual in private could be framed differently under pressure. And that's where risk increases. At the same time, Durk's silence continues. No direct response, no immediate denial, no attempt to shut it down publicly. And that silence? It's starting to split opinion. Some people are saying it's smart, don't speak, don't add fuel. Others are saying it's unusual, because normally something like this would get addressed quickly. That division creates another layer of tension, because now it's not just about facts, it's about interpretation. And interpretation spreads faster than truth. Back in Chicago, the impact of the teen case doesn't slow down either. New details start getting discussed, nothing officially confirmed beyond reports, but enough to keep the story active. The location, the sequence, the call. And here's the new angle people are focusing on, the call itself. Not just that it happened, but why? Why call the mother? Why not disappear completely? Why leave that final trace? Because actions like that aren't random. They send a message, and depending on how people interpret it, that message can mean different things. Some say it was control. Some say it was intimidation. Some say it was something else entirely. But no matter the interpretation, one thing is clear. It changed how people felt about the situation. And now both stories are feeding into the same atmosphere. One showing possible cracks inside a circle that was supposed to be solid. The other showing how far things can go outside of music. And when those two realities exist at the same time, it creates a different kind of pressure. Because now, people aren't separating rap from real life anymore. They're seeing how close those worlds actually are. And that realization, that's what's making everything feel heavier than it did at the start. Because once that line disappears, everything starts getting taken more seriously. Every move, every word, every silence. And right now, both situations are still developing. Nothing is fully answered, nothing is fully resolved, but the direction? It's not calming down, it's building. And if more information surfaces on either side, then what feels intense right now might just be the beginning. By the time night settles in, the situation doesn't slow down, it sharpens. And this is where the final layer starts to hit different. Because now, it's not just the public reacting, it's people inside both worlds, music and the streets, starting to move with more caution. Back around Lil Durk. The conversation shifts again, but this time it's more direct. Not about whether the audio is real, but about what happens if it is. And here's the new twist that starts circulating quietly. There's talk that certain parts of the alleged recording may reference things that were never public before. Not confirmed. Not officially verified. But if that turns out to be true, then the situation changes completely. Because now it's not just a leak, it's information. And information, when it lines up with anything already being looked at, becomes something else entirely. That's when legal pressure stops being theoretical. It becomes real. And people inside the industry understand that. Because they've seen situations like this before, where something small surfaces, then slowly builds into something bigger once it's examined from different angles. That's why the silence around Durk isn't breaking, it's holding. And that kind of silence isn't random, it's controlled. Because saying the wrong thing right now doesn't just affect perception, it can affect outcomes. At the same time, another quiet move adds more tension. A known affiliate, again, no official confirmation, allegedly steps back from public appearances. No posts, no sightings, just absence. Now that by itself doesn't prove anything. But combined with everything else happening, it adds pressure because patterns are forming, people going quiet, accounts disappearing, statements not being made. And when all of that happens at once, it doesn't feel accidental. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, the case involving the teen doesn't fade, evolves. Another detail starts getting discussed, and this one shifts how people are looking at the entire situation: the location. Not just where the victim was found, but where he was taken from. Because when people revisit that detail, they realize something important. This wasn't a hidden area. This wasn't somewhere isolated. It was a place people recognize. A place where activity normally happens. And that raises a different kind of question. How does something like that happen in a place like that, without immediate interruption? That detail alone changes how people view safety. Because now it's not just about what happened, it's about where it happened, and what that means for everyone else moving through those same spaces. At the same time, the focus shifts back to the call made to the mother, but now from a different angle. Not just why it was made, but what it represents. Because actions like that aren't just random behavior, they're decisions, and decisions carry intention. Some people are now suggesting it was meant to control the narrative, deciding how and when the situation would be discovered. Others believe it was meant to send a message, something beyond just the crime itself. No confirmation, but the interpretations keep growing, and every interpretation adds weight. Because now the case isn't just being viewed as a tragedy, it's being viewed as something calculated, something deliberate, and that perception changes how people react to it. Families are more alert. Communities are more cautious, because it doesn't feel like an isolated incident anymore. It feels like a reflection of something bigger. Now, both situations are sitting at a point where they could shift at any moment. On one side, the pressure around Durk continues building quietly: legal, internal, reputational. On the other side, the Chicago case continues spreading through conversation: emotional, real, unsettling. And here's the final twist that connects everything. Neither situation has a clear ending yet. No final answers, no official conclusions, just movement. And when situations like this keep moving without resolution, they don't lose attention, they gain it, because people start watching closer, listening harder, looking for the next piece that might explain everything. Right now, nothing has fully broken open, but the direction, it's clear. Both stories are building towards something. And when that next detail drops, whether it's confirmation, clarification, or something nobody expected, it's not going to feel like a small update. It's going to feel like a turning point. Because everything leading up to this has already set the stage for it. Now you've heard everything. And at this point, it's not just about reacting, it's about understanding what you're really looking at. Because what's happening around Lil Durk? Lil Durk isn't just another rumor cycle. This is pressure building from multiple directions at the same time. Alleged leaked audio, questions about loyalty, possible internal cracks, and silence that's speaking louder than words. And when situations start stacking like that, they don't just disappear, they lead somewhere. At the same time, the case out of Chicago hasn't left people's minds either. The details, the call, the way everything played out, it's the kind of story that stays with you. It makes you think differently about safety, about trust, about how quickly things can change without warning. So now it comes down to you. What do you really think is going on here? Is that leaked audio something serious, or just another situation getting blown out of proportion? And if it is real, does that mean somebody close to Durk actually crossed a line? And on the other side, what does that Chicago case say to you? Is this just another tragic situation, or a sign that things are getting colder than they've ever been?
I want real opinions.
Not surface level takes. Drop your thoughts below and break it down. Which part of this story hit you the hardest?
What stood out that most people might have missed?
Make sure you like, subscribe, and stay locked in. Because if any new detail drops, whether it's confirmation, a response, or something nobody saw coming, we're going to be right here breaking it down in real time. And trust me, this story isn't over yet.